Hey y'all! So we're about to start our final asynchronous read for gist. We've got 5 of them today. In this first section here, as we read, I want you to be paying careful attention to Claire Inez and what is happening to her. Okay, so our read for gist is going to be about Claire and what happens to her. I also, as we are reading, want you to pay attention to Jim Murphy's point of view, our author's point of view. That's not part of the gist, but it is part of our larger focus today. Okay? So let's pay attention to Claire and what happens to her. Let's get started. Chapter 5, Chicago in Flames. Claire wasted little time in being frightened. Her first thought was to see if one or the other of the alley openings might be passable, despite the billowing smoke. She got within 30 feet of the thick smoke, only to be driven back. The heat was like that of an oven. I tried to open the door to a building, but found it bolted. Smoke was escaping from under the other doors, so I gave up hope of finding safety through them. As the roofs, and then the interiors of the surrounding structures, were consumed by the flames, a scorching wind swept through the alley. The rain of burning embers grew heavier and more unbearable. Claire retreated, seeking the safest, coolest place, and found herself back at the construction site. I cannot say I actually decided to hide behind the brick, since I could not hear myself think in that terrible noise. I did not even look at the fire, but hid my face in the dirt and pulled my bundle, which I had retrieved, over my head. For understandable reasons, Claire did not spend much time observing the burning buildings around her, so her description of what happened is limited. It can be reasonably assumed that she was surrounded by a frightening cacophony of sound. That means a lot of sound. Wood igniting and burning wildly, the glass of windows exploding, stairways and ceilings collapsing. When the interior support framing of a building had been eaten through and weakened enough, parts of the exterior brick walls would fall with a ground rumbling roar. The pile of bricks Claire had hid behind shielded her from the severest heat and most of the flying debris. But there is little doubt that she had a great deal of luck on her side as well. For one thing, it's likely that most of the building's walls did not collapse to release a wave of heat or fire. Those walls that did not give way fell far enough from her so that she was not crushed. Other factors may have contributed to her survival as well. The buildings that ringed the construction site may have had few windows, thus containing the baking heat of the fires to some extent. Most important, a deadly convection column never established itself in the immediate area, so a blanket of killing heat and fire did not cover her. Exactly how long it took for the buildings to burn is not clear. Claire only says that it took many minutes. It probably took much longer, an hour or more, for the fires to completely gut the structures that line the alley. During all this time, I kept my head hidden beneath the bundle and said my prayers. Once the main force of the fire began to lessen, Claire peeked out. What she saw must have astonished her. Sturdy brick structures had been transformed into blackened skeletons, whose insides continued to burn brightly. Still, Claire had more immediate concerns. My legs and arms and back were all burnt where my dress caught fire. I put out the fire and made ready to leave, which was not easy as the alleyway openings were blocked with brick and burning wood and smoke. I called for help again and again, and at last a voice called back to me through the smoke. He told me to stand away from there as a wall of the building might collapse on me. And that was all. This made me even more alarmed, but I did not want to stay in the alley alone, so I began climbing. The bricks were still hot, very hot, but I found that if I did not stop moving, my feet were not burnt so bad. Claire scrambled over the smoldering pile of debris and made it to the street. She was by no means safe. Buildings up and down the block were burning and collapsing, punctuated every so often by the explosion of flammable liquids. Abandoned pieces of furniture on the street and sidewalk were fiery torches, while shadowy figures darted through the night, seeking a safe escape. Claire made her way along the street with single-minded purpose. Now, she said, sensing the enormity of the task facing her, I had to find my family in all of this. Okay, class, go ahead and write your gist for this first section of text. See you soon.